legal counsel. Okay, Dr. Moxley?
Yes, welcome to our board members and to the members of the audience. We're glad to have you here at this meeting set up to be a board retreat. When we do have board retreats, we make them very work session oriented to have free-flowing dialogue to look at the structure and direction of our district. We have two items on the agenda that are very focused. The first one is the EngageLCS. This will be our first update, and the reason we brought it to this retreat setting is because it is such a critical foundation to the work of the district and the work of the board in setting the direction of our district, and it brings the financial piece together with your strategic plan. It just so happens now we have a strategic finance plan, and we're trying to manage all these plans that we seem to get going. So the strategic finance plan, while it is very focused on the financial piece of it, we want to make sure that it's very much integrated with the other strategic plan, the overarching strategic plan of the district. And so our employees can see how it connects together, and as well as the business community and everyone in the community at large. So today we decided that we wanted to bring that update first, and while Liz Hobart is coming forward because she's going to be presenting this to you, we wanted to have a discussion on how you want to structure those reports, what format you would like those reports to be in, and where and when we do those reports. So today we're going to have our first update, but even just as important as that update is that how you would like to have it structured. For example, one of the topics we've had in dialogue about this is it's important for us to do two things. It's important for us to be transparent with the public because we started the process that way, and we want to make sure that it continues that way. We also need it to be in a venue where the board feels very comfortable in having two-way dialogue with staff and the board, because it is a fluid document. It is one that is evolving, and we've never done this work before. So it's important to have that two-way dialogue. So in one way, the workshop settings are very conducive to that, because we are used to having that work, rolling up the sleeves, getting down, really having dialogue, collaborating, and problem solving as we go along. It's important that we protect that venue for you and for staff as we move forward with this huge initiative that's changing the culture and the way we work. The other part to that, though, is making sure that it's transparent to the public. And as you know, when we look around the room, we see all the same familiar faces at workshops. And so sometimes it doesn't necessarily always get out to the public. So in some ways, I have some thoughts and some recommendations to you for your consideration, but I really want to hear from you what works best for you. And then Ms. Hobart and I will structure it in such a way that it works. So,
Ms. Hobart, before you start, I've already broken my own rule. Is there any public input? No? Kim?
no, good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then moving into the first item, I am going to ask Ms. Hobart to go ahead and give us an update. She did prepare a PowerPoint because one of the things that we did in working with BCG to structure this, we branded it so that you see the same logo, but we're also using the same template and format that we use. People are familiar with that. We thought for consistency, so we have adopted this PowerPoint template as the one we're using to do our work, and how we actually use the same template for our agendas for our internal meetings. And so that way it's easy to be posted, it can be transferred to the public very easily. So, Ms. Hobart.
Well, good afternoon, and I appreciate having a chance to share with you the structure under which we plan to move forward and managing this very large project and doing it consistently, and as Dr. Moxley mentioned, transparently, and connecting with you on a regular basis so that you can have appropriate input. So if we look at the agenda, you'll see that, first of all, I'm going to just update you on the status of the strategic finance plan and where we're at. And this will look very familiar to you as the overall project timeline, which you'll see the number of 2014-15 budget. And implementing the staffing and innovation processes. And so you'll see that we're it looks like we're about halfway through our plan in terms of the official project timeline. In terms of our current focus is return on investment. And our goal is to link the 2014-15 budget, that line item budget that you regularly worked with a 3-year strategic finance plan. And in that process, to shift the culture to emphasize return on investment. Along with that, the instructional priority teams are planning for implementation because, as you know, we're moving funding over into instructional priorities. So their goal is to be ready to hit the ground running with the 2014-15 year, ready to move forward with those priorities. So let's look at the work group structure and how this is set up. I bring back to you, again, a very familiar slide. This is the overall picture of our strategic finance plan. On the right side, you see our investment opportunities, which we know better as our instructional priorities. On the left side, you see our realignment opportunities, where we want to move money from in order to invest in the opportunities that we've identified. Now, if you were to analyze this, you would see that each one of these is a project in itself. And so in order to manage this process, we've created working groups for each of these areas. And the next pages share with you the work group title, and they would correspond to the page before, and the roadmap owner. Now, I'm using the term already, roadmap. We're going to move into using that terminology. A lot of you know a term called action planning. Road mapping is our term for mapping the future with specific action steps or milestones. So when I say roadmap, that's actually the language you might think of as action plan. So you'll see that the first items are the initiatives for the strategic finance plan, the school staffing, which is basic to the plan. That's a huge part of the budget. The program evaluation and innovation cost and ROI process, which is our system now for evaluating new initiatives and measuring their return on investment and the ongoing return on investment over time. And then I want to explain to you the Strategic Finance Plan 2.0 and the 2014-15 budget. These are actually, the 2014-15 budget is what we're going to be working on now these next months. But we are going to need to figure out how to do this whole process consistently again next year. And that will start for us in June, July time period. And so we actually have a planning group working with how that's going to roll forward. So we'll do the same process we did this year, though it was first time through this year. But we want to map that out real carefully so we've got a timeline and move carefully through that process. So SFP 2.0 is the second edition of the Strategic Finance Plan and rolling that forward another year. Then the instructional priorities, which you're very familiar with. You'll notice here we have decided to bring English language learners and struggling students into one team to work on that particular area. As we explored this, we knew it was a need. We found that we really needed to coordinate these two priorities to do it well. So we weren't hitting the same students, so we were making sure we covered all students in our assessment. And so Katie Pearson and Dr. Christensen will be working together on that and coordinating their efforts. So that's a really good leadership crew to have working on that endeavor. The other areas you'll recognize as having been briefed on before. Now, as I move on, these are our realignment opportunities, and these are simply the areas that we are looking at to realign resources from over to our instructional priorities. So you'll see very clearly all of the titles that you've become acquainted with. And then Finally, it continues with the realignment opportunities on this next slide. And then we move into communications, which Chris Patton, of course, oversees. One of the things Chris has talked with us about is that once we get the roadmaps ready for all of these initiatives, then the communications plan really flows. Each of the plans will have some communication segments to them, but he'll bring that together for his overall plan.
Ms. Hoover, before you go on, I'd like to make a couple comments.
Sure.
On the realignment opportunities and the work groups that we have. Yes. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We are in the process of putting all the work groups together, the teams, and we've got recommendations of people to serve in those capacities. We want to make sure that we have people on the ground as part of those committees. I will be bringing that list because I did promise you that I would identify that and bring that list to you at our next workshop next Monday. The group, why they are not here today is because with the long weekend, we did not get everyone contacted to ask them if they would serve, and so I did not want to publicly put their name out until they have been contacted. I mean, we don't surprise them like that. So we will have that finished, and I will have that list to you so that you have that as I promised I would have that to you. So I wanted to make sure you are aware before, because Liz now will walk you into what this road mapping looks like. The other piece to it is two of the areas, the scheduling was a big initiative. We have been doing a lot of work on that. We have a consultant that is working with us, Marilyn Crawford from TimeWise. She has worked with, we've met her on a couple other initiatives, because one of the items that we are looking at when we look at the scheduling piece is to identify time for teachers. That's the biggest issue that we get from teachers, is that the role that a teacher and administrator plays in moving academic achievement forward requires time. Time to collaborate, time to look at data analysis, look at student achievement data, make adjustments, all of that. That is the one thing that teachers say that they do not have enough of. So we're trying to be proactive and really be pioneers in this area, using the expertise of people that have worked with schedules before, look at the avenues of blended learning, personalized learning. How can we bring it all together and integrate it and use that to our advantage to create a new schedule? Not one that's been used in the past, not to go backwards into the way we've always done it, but to create a new type of schedule that, one, meets the needs of students, allows us to blend instructional strategies and formats and delivery models that is current for students of today, using the technology to assist with that, and to give teachers time, that is very constructive time, to do the things that we know moves student achievement. Because what we have been doing and the way we've always done it is not moving it the way we want it to be. The model is not current. And so that group is really working hard. On next week, as you know, we're going to be in Houston before a panel presenting our strategic plan for personalized learning, which is one of the instructional opportunities that Liz just highlighted, which hopefully will result in us getting some additional funding to accelerate that initiative, not just hinging on our budgets, which we know is already lean. So we're hoping to get good news out of that, but you can see where these work groups, some of them are a little further ahead, some of them are just at the starting point, but I believe we have a very bold plan. It's a very aggressive plan, and it's going to require a lot of work, and our folks have really been up to that work and doing that. So we're excited about where these teams are going. So I just wanted to say that before we moved on that topic. Anybody have questions?
This is just a comment. As you started your presentation, and you defined roadmap, and that most of us would know it as action plan, since the community is going to be looking at this, the business community, and we're all used to using that term, action plan, milestones, Gantt charts, why did you feel it necessary to recreate the word?
You know, I think actually I appreciate the question, and haven't questioned that language-wise, which I would think I maybe would think so. But anyway, to that terminology, and I think it's the terminology that they use. They actually have a very deep system developed in road mapping and using that format. So we borrowed that language from them. And so, and the idea was that we have a goal in mind and we're mapping it out carefully, so we follow the road to get there. So
Just like an action plan. Just like an action plan.
Just like an action plan, yeah.
You know, and
I don't think that's a really interesting question. I don't think I.
You know, that's a good point of discussion here for a moment, if I may, Chairman, because you know there is a good reason to use common language that people understand. So I hear exactly what you're saying, is that if it is an action plan, then let's just call it an action plan and everybody understands it. Stands up for the simplicity. The other side to that, that I think where BCG was coming from, if I can go back and try and interpret my comprehension of what they were trying to say, is that that term tends to be used and thrown out as a catch-all. And what they were saying to us is they have a very, very defined methodology that they are teaching us. And so they did not want it to be misconstrued as a catch-all, that there might be 1,000 definitions for that out there, or what all that is inclusive. So that's why they stuck with their terminology, and we just took it from there. If that becomes a distractor in our community, then I don't want it to be a distractor. The flip side to that is I don't want anybody to misread that we're doing a very simplistic action plan that's just a piece of paper and a chart, because it is so much more than a piece of paper and a chart and a timeline. Again, I know from people that are in business that isn't all that it is, but there are some people that call project management that it's a chart where you just fill out and it's a kind of a rote thing. I don't define it that way, but I know some people have used that term in that manner. That's not what we're talking about here. So we can call it whatever you want. I mean, we're happy. We're not hung up on the word road mapping. Many times we say, think of an action plan, but it's a very multi-tiered, very comprehensive action plan.
Well, in my world, you have action plans that have milestones, and that's taught in every university, and they typically are detailed. That if we are modeling ourselves as a business, it just seems like when we sell it, or when we speak to the community, that using the language that's used in business, rather than trying to create a totally get both sides of it.
Right.
So mine's just a comment on that. Right. But I would go action.
I think where you're coming from and what you just described, that's where we are. And so if the word action planning in that context, and we all have that common understanding and that common language, we can call it that. That's not a problem.
The only part that I would ask is, if we're talking about road mapping as your 10,000 foot view, there will be action plans within that. And so that's one thing that I don't want to do, is have terms that are being used in different manners, and that can be just as bad. And I don't know if you have that or not.
But I don't think road mapping is a 10,000, right? That is where we're getting into.
Perhaps I could go through the process, and maybe after I share with you the process, then it would be a good.
Yeah.
Because road mapping, when I said that, I realized I didn't talk about it being a system. It's really a whole system. Roadmaps are a part of it, but it's a whole system. And so maybe I could take you through that, and then we can pick up.
Okay.
And then I think once you hear, and I'm sorry, once you hear the explanation and see that what that all encompasses, and I think system is a good word for it, that road mapping may be the term of the system, and there's action plan that is embedded in that. I think we have to have a clear understanding, and I think then after that, then let's land where we want a common term to be, and then we'll go with that.
You know, I think that consideration is really good, because there is misunderstanding, and it is the terminology that's being used that's confusing. So everyone has been very diligent in doing their background checks and looking at what we're doing, and then we come to road mapping, and it becomes confusing.
That's a good point.
And I think you and I have talked about that at one point.
Okay. Any other questions?
vetted through rigor test, and I'll take you through the questions that are used for that and a template for the roadmap, so you'll see what that is. In the vetting process, roadmaps are reviewed by relevant sponsors to evaluate the milestones and the timeline. So it's not just one person or one group creating a roadmap, but there are several sets of expert eyes on it to see if there are holes, if something's missing, if there are connections that need to be made. Then 3, the users begin using the roadmaps and update progress as they go. And the owners update their status on a regular basis based on the milestones that they set. And then the project manager uses those updated roadmaps to track progress and to highlight milestones or reports to the board and to the leadership team. So those are the 4 steps. So let's look at what a roadmap looks like. It's a simple Excel document, and it has, first of all, the deliverable. Milestones are based on the overarching group deliverables that are to be provided by the end of the project. And then there's space to enter the main milestones, again, 10 to 15 to 20. This is not a person or a leader having a roadmap like this would have sub-steps to this. These are the milestones, not all the little steps that are taken. Metrics are attached as appropriate, and then the planned completion date is entered. We've also added a column just in the last while that has to do with interdependencies, because we want to define the interdependencies with other roadmaps. So that's been added now to this template. These are the questions that are used for the rigor test. When we bring the project leader together with appropriate people to look at that roadmap. So the questions in the first column are around, is the roadmap logical and complete? Have we got everything in there that we need to have in the plan in order to get to the deliverables? Are the stakeholders clear? It's the center column. And are the interdependencies spelled out? So when you need information from other teams or other people, is that clear in the plan?
I think it's important to note that we added the interdependencies, and I know that is a word that everybody understands what it means, but how does it actually apply is important here, because so many times big organizations, of which we are one, you have silos, and departments will go forth, make decisions based on what the role they play in an organization. But if you're not careful, you can get going in one direction, and here's another department, they're going down a common path, and you're doing multiple things, and we're not utilizing resources as efficiently, or you may be pulling in opposite directions. So with each one of these plans, we are actually being very cognizant of what are the interdependencies between departments, between roadmaps, to break down those silos. And because we are located in so many different locations around this district, departments have to work so closely. This is one attempt to help break down some of those silos. Yes, sir.
Where do we fit as a board in this process?
You approved a strategic finance plan, and based on your direction, that sets the road mapping and the areas of which we do this process.
But that process, do we see any of that as it's being developed?
You will, because those will come back to you in the forms of those updates. And that's why we feel that the updates have to be in a setting that is conducive for you to have, for us to have the two-way conversation, because there may be some things you want to see added, or you know, there's a direction you may want to see, or you may not like the direction it's going, but we need to have updates along the way.
You know, the milestones, I saw you had dates completed, but is there an expected date to see how you're staying on track?
Yeah, and actually,
Shut up.
who knows, Actually, in just a minute, I'll show you how a report to you would look.
Okay.
And certainly that can be adjusted, but to share with you, and then we'll see. To talk a little bit about the bigger picture of project management. I will use a master tracker system. I have a very large Excel worksheet that the 24 projects fit in. And that has summary tabs so that I can see the status across the work groups. The project managers do regular updates to me. I place them in the master tracker, and it automatically then takes information to a summary tab so I can see if people are, if they are making the dates that they have and the progress, and they can make comments as well. And it also contains a template for sharing milestones and status, so I can come back to you as a board and share that status from that system. So, Dr. Moxley had mentioned where we are, the current status of the road mapping system. The work groups have been designated, that's compiled. The leaders are confirming work groups. Not everybody has been notified yet. And leaders are convening their work groups. All road maps will be due by January 31st. Rigor testing, February 3rd through the 12th. And the work group results and recommendations are due in early April so that they can help with the decisions for the line item budget. And so for board updates, how that would look. There will be regular updating for the board, including all 24 work groups, using 2 to 4 major milestones for each work group. As I mentioned, there are 15 to 20, or 10 to 20 for each of the 24 work groups. So what I'm doing is asking each roadmap owner to highlight 2 to 4 milestones that should be reported to the board as showing progress, key milestones. And those would be what I would plan in the reports to the board, so that you can keep a finger on this, the very important areas. An actual report would look like this to you. And this report lists the team lead and the team, the milestones, the due date, and whether it's on time or it uses the green, yellow, and red lights so you can see if things are on time. And then there are status updates and comments provided on each of the milestones. So that would be the reporting template that I would plan to come back to you with. And then the regular reports, Dr. Moxley was, we talked about how this might work. And I know you're going to discuss this, but that there would be regular reports at a board workshop. The third Monday of the month was consistent, and this, of course, is up to your discretion. The reports would be provided on major milestones for each work group, and then the reporting also would be done to you on the results. Some work groups will finish earlier than others, so as we have results, their end results or compilation of information will be presented to you. And then, at your discretion, we can also come to regular board meetings and share information as well. I know that you will be discussing this. So, I mentioned laying out the whole system as we projected it, but now it's kind of up to you for discussion to see what would be helpful and how you might like to further shift it.
Bill, does that answer the question, concern you had on getting the information, keeping you updated as a board member?
Yes, but with so many things going on, would it make any sense that we took 1 or 2 areas as a board? We want to all see every one of them. Some of them I have no breadth of knowledge, some of them more interested in see how they're doing.
You do that way. We can.
I'm just asking.
But as a total board, I mean, the question we have is that I know each of you have very specialty areas of expertise and interest, but But as a total board, we take direction from the total board. So I guess as a total board, you need to talk to me about how you want to divide that up and bring that, because at some point in time, or if you want to designate, you know, I don't know. But we need to have clear direction on how you want that, because I don't want to be in a situation where staff members are working with only one board member when other board members are interested in it, and we take direction from the collective, unless you've given direction otherwise. So that's my only, we just want to be clear.
David, can you turn the lights back on for us, please? Thank you. Okay, you've heard Bill's opinion. He's up on all this. Do you have an opinion? Does the whole board want to keep seeing these? I personally do, because I'm interested in the whole
I
thing.
think it's important that the board sees the whole thing, and then if there's certain areas that you're interested in or want to go deeper in, then you can talk to staff related to your areas of interest. But I think it's important that we have the whole update each time.
Well, certainly I want it to be public, and I want it to be where all board members can hear information and discuss, but I also want access to the superintendent and our administrative staff for questions that come about or input from the public. And input from the public is vital. So, and because I know that there is confusion, a special time period for that to speak prior to, and I know you stated your new trend now to have public input first, but every time that we can have a report, I would like the public to voice concerns, because this is going to be online too.
Right. So they can read it, and when they come to the
Right.
meeting, they can express their
And
concerns.
I think that will be just the thing.
Okay. Todd?
The only thing I get concerned about is with all the reports and all of the paperwork that staff does, is that what we end up with is that they're just generating reports. Because there is a capacity issue with everything that's going on for a whole as a district on how much can get done. For me personally, I'm mostly interested in executive summary. If I have questions, then I will ask that. But as far as doing a big production each time, it's got so many good things going on. I don't want to get these folks who are working on this, they've got a lot of work to do. And so for me, just the outline is fine. I mean, I don't know how much board time or how much prep time we need to have with PowerPoints, and I mean, how many have we had? And I know there's probably hours that have gone into all of these. And I probably could have read it in an executive summary with an outline of where we're at, and just been happy. So I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but I know that, and I thought, you and I talked about capacity within the district, and I'd rather make sure that the folks who are doing this, who have the skills to get it done, have the time to do it. I mean, I can go, like I said, I guess what I'm saying is, I can balance it, but I don't necessarily need to do a good production.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was
The workshop. We're talking about the workshop.
We've got a workshop, and then you can have that executive
Summary on the public
And
hearing.
that's what I thought we were.
Right, I'm just, to be doing these and to do a big production, each time is the part that, I don't have an issue with it being presented, but I'm sure she has better things to do than to spend an hour, 2 hours prepping, and then another, the time to get there and to get set. That's a lot of time, so that's up to you guys and that's your staff.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask on page 16, when you said you would be bringing back on a regular 2 to 4 major milestones for each of them. That's not going to take 2 hours to do.
No.
And that you've already proposed to do. You're not bringing us back every milestone.
Well,
You're bringing 2.
I would hope if this works for you, the master tracker system is set up to do this quite efficiently. So if this serves as an executive or enough detail, if that is not hard to do with the system that is set up, it is made to do that. And then, of course, it might raise other questions.
And to recommendation to you as a board is that we use this tool, that does not create an additional presentation. She is doing that anyway, that this be brought to a board workshop. We have the two-way dialogue about any additional questions you might have related, and we can go deeper into any of those that any one board member may have at that moment in time. If there is one that you specifically want more detail than what would be coming, if you just call us and let us know, hey, I really would like a little more in-depth than what this sheet gives us, we'll make sure we bring that to the entire group. And there may be 2 or 4 areas that we know we need to have some further direction from you, or we run into a resource glitch, or we see there's additional information that we didn't anticipate, we need to bring that to your attention. That's when we're talking about the 2 to 4, there may be, that's where we were talking about bringing those potential things that were there. And then this would be the document that gets posted on board docs for the public, and then we can put it on the 4th board meeting under reports. We would simply put what you workshopped the meeting before, that would go on there, and that would not be a working session, but it would allow an executive summary for the public. And the public would actually have 2 times to really We all
uh,
understand how busy all of us.
Right, and that was my concern was, you know, if we keep this very brief, very short, I mean, what I'm looking at is it says we're going to have a recorded board workshop. If we're creating a board workshop for that, then
No,
that
no, we
is-
have other things, no.
Well,
No, we would not, we understand that you don't want a workshop just for this update.
And I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we personally have questions, we're to contact Chief Lee,
You would contact Liz Hobart,
always Liz.
and she'll work through that. Any other questions? I have one other point to make, and it just escaped my mind.
And action, the language, is there anything?
I wanted to go back to the language. The other part of it is we are going through the rigor testing, and we do have different folks with expertise sitting on some of those rigor testing. In fact, from time to time, we may call upon one of you. If that's your area of expertise, could you sit on our rigor testing? We have some members of the community that have served on advisory boards for us that have that's their area of expertise. We've asked them to be to let us do rigor testing and for them to be part of that. So we are trying to be diverse and really look at someone's expertise, because that's where you're actually, we want people to punch holes in it so that we make sure that we've well vetted some things. So if there is a particular area of interest, then we know, we can work with you on that as well. Okay. We need to go back to the road mapping issue. That's what you want to call it.
And I like
road mapping, but see, I'm from the engineering background, so.
And I like the road mapping also. I think as we're rolling this out, and all of it's new, that to be able to call it, that road mapping, and that we have these milestones that we're trying to achieve, and that we've met and we've exceeded, I think that the community will pick up on it.
And the reason I said that was because, I understand Bill, because for me in business, which I have before, it's action plans. It's action plans.
But it's actually
But
a
you can,
milestone.
but you can still say that if you're out talking to somebody. This is the mantra that we come up with, is road mapping, but it's actually an action plan.
Well,
You can explain it that way. But this separates us and makes it stand out in my mind.
But we're not separate, and exactly what happened is this had to explain it initially as to what it was. Why would we create a term we're now going to have to explain that, unless you're going to change milestone, which is used with action plans, call it boulders or something, road mapping boulders, I don't know, but intersections. But the reality is it's an action plan. The business community, the education community, financial community is all going to understand an action plan. You're going to, and I acquiesce a little bit to you that we're trying to bring this new vision, but on the other hand, what we're really doing is we involve ourselves like we're a business. So why would we not adopt the same terminology that business uses? That's all. And it doesn't matter.
We call it a green plan at the college, so we don't even, we use even a different terminology.
Ma'am?
Would it work to say road mapping action plan and then say that solves all of that and set aside?
I
Slash
thought it
green
was
plan.
supposed to be, you know,
I didn't mean to do that. I don't want to.
maybe not.
I just want the comprehension of it.
Ma'am, just to the list, how long have you referred to it as roadmap?
It's not a hard change to make. The instructional priority teams have worked with the term road mapping for a couple of months now, but that can certainly be transitioned, so.
We can call it either one and be fine, because this is a new system for us. So I'm more concerned about the system than the actual label we put on it. I want,
Yeah, for me, I'm more concerned about how easy it's absorbed and
Right.
accepted. That's the reason I think we talk about it.
Do we need to put the system as part of the action plan? That way they know that it's a new action plan system. It's not going to be just an action plan like we did at the county and it gets put on a shelf somewhere. It's not finished.
my recommendation at this point in time, because this is new, is that we put on our web, and we'll work with Mr. Patton to put a clear definition of what this is. We'll call it road mapping action plan, and action planning, so that we're getting people to transition to the term, what it is, and we'll have a very simplistic, clear definition. Put that right smack on the front of the website, so when people go to EngageLCS, they can see what it is, and that it is, because I think it's important for people to know this is a system. We're developing a system that is in our district, and you know, many times people will say, we've got that great program at that school, and when that individual leaves, the program ceases to exist. We want to make sure that we have a system that is fundamental to Lake County schools, regardless of any faces, you know, coordinating it. So that's our goal, is to get the system in place, and so we're developing new. I want it to be easy to be understood, so if that's agreeable.
That we're adding the action plan after.
Well, I have a question, and Bill may know this, Mr. Snatchers, but if you're talking about that system, is there a difference in an action plan when moving from A to B to implement the system, whereas the roadmap is the system? I mean, are we, I want to be sure that we are very, very clear on definitions, and we're not talking about the action plan to create the roadmap, or, you know, because I think that
The roadmap.
I think trying to add too many terms in here, we are going to get ourselves behind.
That's right. Each of the categories is really an action plan. You can have a start, an expectation, and a finish. And so, just the term action plan other than roadmap is just, I mean, if it's a system, I kind of bought into the system being the road mapping, and each of the categories have a specific action plan to them. That's why I went through the whole thing. So I bought into that, and it may well be as simple as it's for road mapping.
For a new action plan.
Well, each one is an action
New system.
plan. Each of those, and each has its own milestones. And you're going to be adding more action plans. But they have, an action plan has to define beginning, it has to define milestones, and it has to define expectation of what the result's going to be. And they are date sensitive typically.
And that's what this is.
So-
That is what this is.
Well, that is an action plan. But if we're going to try and marry the road mapping part of it to
Oh,
it,
and that's what the.
they aren't, I can't make the connection of the two being the same, like road mapping action.
Okay.
It's one or the other to me. And again, I don't find it offensive using the word road map. I just find that why would we put something up we have to explain first, when pretty much everybody understands whether they're actually making this work or not. You know what I mean? That like you said, the county doesn't, that they
Right.
don't follow through.
Right.
That doesn't mean that a lot of us use them every day and they work. And so we just understand. That's all. And I'm not trying to hard sell this, I'm just explaining.
And I guess that's where, like, if we're looking at a curriculum map, it's the actual plan of how they get from A to B. It is the plan of it. It's not necessarily the actions that we're taking to implement that plan. And so that's where I can see, just talking about it, in what we're doing with it, there's definitely action plans in there to move from A to B. But once the system's done, there's a map to the system on how we proceed.
Systemic change.
And so if that's what we're talking about, is the roadmap for the system, for people to be able to look at it and go, oh, this is how it works.
So if it was the roadmap for change, or
For the,
And that's it.
for the, you know, if the roadmap is the pathway of the system, I get that. If we're trying to say that those are action plans, then I don't. And that's why I said, I just think we need to be very, very clear with the term.
Mrs. Hobart, you have worked directly with BCG on this terminology for a long time. So I really have great respect for your knowledge base and opinion on this topic. So based on the dialogue you've heard from Dr. Howard and Mr. Mathias and the other board members, this particular exercise, where would you fit it in the language they've used?
Yeah, let me pose something. I'm just posing this because I don't know that I've had this kind of dialogue with BCG. But I wonder if we could talk, because we hope to move this into the way we do work across the system, which you alluded to. So would it make sense if we called the system our road mapping system, within which we have action plans? And then we have something where we're talking about our project management system, the road mapping system, where we expect we've got, I don't know, we're mixing language.
It is a road mapping system, but I believe the exercises these groups are doing are action plans.
Yeah. And so I
That's
think
right.
That's where I think
Does
I've
that
landed
work?
from that. So then we will refer to our road mapping system as the overarching system.
Right.
The actual groups, the work teams are creating the action
that's
plans.
exactly what it is.
For the road mapping system.
And I think that makes it very, very clear that, because if somebody wants to come look at it, then they can see the roadmap of, you know, of what has been done and how it's being.
So road mapping is referring to the process, the actual documents where they're creating the milestones with and the metrics. That's the action plan.
Everybody agree?